The name of the character that we met in yesterday's story comes from a pedestal that was excavated and near the altar of the goddess Sulis in the temple at Aquae Sulis. The person dedicating this is named Lucius Marcius Memor, and he is described only as a haruspex. I'm going to go through the inscription and show you the abbreviated forms of words, the convoluted way that some of these words are written in just a second. But first I want to go back over what I said yesterday about the haruspex, what a haruspex did in Roman civic religion. So you have the sacerdos who sacrifices animals publicly on an altar. The haruspex is the guy who pulls the entrails, that's what the word harus means, out onto the altar and examines them for signs of divine pleasure or displeasure, for hints about the future, warnings from the supernatural, right? This sounds like something that would be done in some creepy back room of the temple, but all of Roman religion was a public performance, right? The altars are placed in front of the temple, outside of the sanctuary, and this is a very public ritual. So the haruspex is the guy who interprets signs that he detects in the entrails of recently slaughtered animals. So let's look at the inscription on this pedestal, and I'm going to show you some of the interesting choices they make in fitting together a little sentence and abbreviating words to make them fit in the space that they have. First of all, the statue was of the goddess Sulis, and it is dedicated to the goddess Sulis. So here we have the word goddess, only, of course, if it's dedicated to her, it needs to be in the dative case. You notice here, instead of making a separate letter E, they've just added 3 strokes to the A to make dea into dei, right? There's a little space, and then the name of Sulis appears. Again, it's in the dative case. Sulis is third declension, so Suli is the dative case. So to the goddess Sulis, the 2 words are separated by a little decorative element, looks kind of like a leaf. There's another one of these down here, and I'll explain what the 2 Ds represent on either side of it. The second line is the name that we've already encountered, Lucius Marcius Memor. The praenomen, as always, is just written as an L. There's a little chink in there, which just indicates that this is not part of the word that follows. We'll see this again, right? And then here's his nomen. First an M, all right? Marcius is what we're going to write here, only we're not going to separate them all out. There's an M. He built the A right off the M. And then, why waste space? He incorporated the downstroke of that A in the letter R. So you have the letter M, the letter A, and the letter R, all written together like that, right? Then he makes a nice, big, neat C, a U, which looks to us like a V, and an S, Marcus, right? Only at this point, his supervisor came around and said, no, his name's not Marcus, it's Marcius, Lucius Marcius Memor. The workman says, oh, no problem, I'll just put the I right here. I'll just put an I, I'll work the I in right there. Lucius Marcius Memor, right? Everybody's happy. You can't erase it and start over, right? It's stone. You can't go get another piece, there's probably not time for that. So you see the decisions that got made here. All right, another little separator chink, and then we start his cognomen, Memor. All right, so once again, let me do this in yellow so you can see it a little more clearly. A nice, clear M. Let's don't make an E, we'll just add three strokes. We've built our M and our E together, saving space, right? He's probably starting to think he's running out of pedestal here. Except then he writes a super big M, and he builds an R off of that. Memor, right? Again, his boss shows up and says, where's the O? Where's the O? Oh, I left out the O. Well, you know what? I'll just stick it in here. I'll stick it inside of the M, right? So this is literally what is going on here, right? Memor. So each of these words had an element left out. The I was left out over here and inserted later. The O was left out over here and inserted later. Again, if you can't start over, this is what you do. You salvage the work that you've already done. Like I already said, this guy's job, he's a haruspex, and so the guy starts chiseling that into the stone, H-A-R, very confidently, and then he starts thinking, haruspex is a pretty long word, and so he writes the V, and he just kind of squiggles that up into an S, and he writes a P, and then for some reason, he just stops. Harusp, right? Because Romans had very little, there weren't a lot of fixed rules around how to abbreviate things. They would write enough until you get the idea, and then if they looked like they were going to run out of room, if they tried to write the whole word, they would stop. So harusp indicates that he's a haruspex, and then at the very last part on the bottom, you have a D over here, that decorative leaf thing, and another D over here. This stands for donum donavit. More than likely, he gave as a gift, or he gives, right, dot, as a gift. So Lucius Marcius Memor, the haruspex, gives this gift to the goddess Sulis. Right? We don't know what the gift was. We assume it's a statue. All we have is the pediment, but just wanted to write this out for you so you realize that this is where your new friend Lucius Marcius Memor comes from. It doesn't say that he's a fat, lazy man, that he's a careerist that doesn't care about his job. It doesn't say any of that stuff. Cambridge made all that up. But that this is a real guy commemorated here in this inscription, right? That's what we're working from. All right, we'll be looking at more inscriptions like this as we go through the book, because they find them in Britannia and in England all the time from the Roman period, and there's a whole field of people that specialize in interpreting these things. All right, that's all for now. I'll see y'all back in class tomorrow.